I think 5 years ago, Kev would look at this version of Kev and say, not only have you improved and you've become more confident and you've worked on your self-belief and your self-worth and your boundaries, and there's a business and there's an amazing team and you're married and all that, but you didn't lose yourself in that process.
If you can become your own hero, if you can become the hero of your own story, if you can be a bright light for others in the way that you would have needed, I do believe that that's the best it'll ever get.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1703, Your Parents Aren't Who You Thought They Were. Today, for episode number 1704, what would younger you think of you today? I was on a podcast, and we were having this very, very deep conversation. And we were talking about how we're very proud of ourselves for growing and evolving and getting to the place that we're at. And it was with a young lady named Courtney. Sweetheart. What a sweet human being. And I said, let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question? Let me flip the script here. Sometimes I do this. I just need to ask you a question. And I said, that girl that was 100 pounds heavier than you, that girl who was dealing with what she was dealing with at the time, what would she think of you today? And she paused. And then she said, you're going to make me cry. And then she started crying. And she went through what that version of her would think about her today and how proud she would be and how grateful she would be that she did all those things to make herself proud today. And she went on and on and on. It was beautiful. And I said, the reason I asked you that question, Courtney, is because I think old me would be triggered by new me. I think old Kevin, who was insecure, I think old Kevin who was surrounded by scarcity, I think old Kevin who didn't believe in himself would probably look at this version of Kevin and think I'm a tryhard and think I am, quote unquote, too much, probably think I'm arrogant to some degree. And I said, that's really helped me empathize with a lot of different humans. But I'm curious to what you, whether you're watching or listening, would think about you today. If you look back 5 years ago, what would 5 years ago you think about you today? Would it be positive? Would it be, oh no, we've let ourselves down over the last 5 years? I was looking at pictures today, because today I posted our $1 million, 1 million listen post on social media. It was time. It felt right. Today was the right day. It felt right. And I was going through my Facebook and my Instagram looking at pictures. And I have so many pictures from the fitness days, and I look back, and it's like, my goodness. I was just in so much better shape. I was. Do I have a list of reasons why that is? Yes. I have way more priorities. I don't want to suffer as much as I used to suffer. There's a lot of reasons underneath that. But I'm certain 5 years ago Kev, looking at Kev today, is probably like, hey, man, you let it go a bit. You were in really good shape, and you're still maybe above average, fine, but you're not where you once were. What do you got for me? You're smirking.
No, that's just, it's so bad.
It's
That's the one thing. That's the only thing that
it's
younger Alan is so disappointed.
Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah. So I share all that.
But everything else, you would say the opposite.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
Which is good, because it's just again, I think two of the most powerful words in the human language are I decided. I have not yet decided to say, you know what, I'm going to track my calories consistently. I weigh myself every day, and I'm not gaining weight. I'm staying at the same weight. That's my goal until I get back from Scotland. But there is a piece of me that I am probably going to eat so much in Scotland that when I get home, I want to diet. I'm probably going to try to get myself to that point where when I come home, it's like, Kev, you've had a blast. You drank all the whiskey you could drink. You ate good food. Now let's dial it in. Let's get down to 170 pounds, and then just don't go off the rails. Just do go do your jiu-jitsu competition, lift heavy, go for runs, do the exercise you love to do, and then just do what you're doing, what you did before. Just eat at maintenance and don't worry about it. You don't have to lose weight forever, but let's just not get back to where we are. So again, the ultimate goal in this episode, the reason I wanted to do this episode is because we might look back and say, wow, I've come so far in the last 5 years. Love that. That's always the goal. I'm curious to what we all think about when we put ourselves in the position of the person 5 years ago and look at today. What would you think of you? Would you be proud? Would you be happy? Would you be sad? Would you be disappointed? Would you be mind blown? What would it be for you? That is the theme for today's episode.
I was thinking a lot about where I wanted to go with this, and I think that my very first YouTube video, I've sent it to a lot of my clients because I say, don't compare to where we are now, you need to compare to this. And I have it unlisted on YouTube. It's private, but if I send you the link, if anyone wants it, reach out, email me. The email will be in the show notes, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. But it's an episode about heroes. And I was thinking about, is that unique to me? It's called Real Life Superheroes. It was a series that I wanted to do. And for me, when I was a kid, heroes were, one of the reasons why I loved film was just heroes. A character goes through adversity, answers the call to adventure, and then faces trials and tribulations and eventually gets the girl or defeats the villain and becomes this bigger, better, stronger version of themselves on the other side of the film. And that was always just so inspiring. Film just inspires me, a lot of them, not all of them, especially ones based on true stories. And so that's the journey we're all on. But I wonder to myself, is having heroes something that I did that other people maybe didn't do as much? And I've done this in coaching. I've asked people, who were your heroes? And a lot of people would say, I didn't really have any. And maybe you did unconsciously, but never consciously thought about it. Maybe you're denying the fact that you actually do have heroes because it's hard to give someone that because they might let you down. There's that whole don't meet your heroes thing. Or maybe you actually don't, and that's a unique to me thing. I just feel like I needed something to inspire me. I needed that so badly. And the question that I would ask everyone is, have you become your own hero? Have you become, if you could go back and you're a child, let's say you're 10 years old, and your 10-year-old self could meet your current self, would your 10-year-old self be blown away? One thing that I think is really cool is kids are so... Kevin and I had a very unique experience where we were able to do a speech to 3 different audiences. The first audience was the tail end of middle school, so I think it was 8th grade, 7th and 8th graders. The second speech was freshmen and sophomore in high school. The third speech was juniors and seniors. Same speech. It was about growth mindset, perseverance, and success or something like that.
Yeah, resilience maybe?
Resilience,
Well, I
yeah.
guess that's perseverance. But.
Perseverance. It was growth mindset, personal development oriented. And I thought the first speech in terms of the craft was actually the worst one, but it was received the best. And I think the reason it was received the best is we went backstage and I was talking to Kevin. I was like, that second speech went way worse than the first one. And you came back, you're like, no, we did a way better job the second time.
I think we got progressively better at delivering the speech. The audience didn't necessarily resonate to the same level of improvement. Is what
it's hard to parse those out. But we masterminded behind the scenes a lot and had a deep conversation about this behind the scenes in between speeches of why, and I knew in my head, it's like, why would we do a better delivery on the same topic and have it be received worse? And then the third one was even worse. The juniors and seniors might as well have been making fun of us. Yeah. And there's some other external factors as to why that happened. We got introduced poorly, whatever. But the point is the ego develops. In high school, young kids don't have big egos. They're very honest. They'll tell you when you look like crap, and they'll tell you when you're amazing. And when I play basketball and soccer with Emilia every now and then, and we go to the track, and there's little kids And these little kids are in awe, especially little boys. I'm 6'2". I've worked really hard in fitness. I'm coming up on 2.5 years of exercise every day. I'm a very large human being who very clearly has muscle mass. And I say that, depending on who I'm standing next to, by the way, I'm by no means anywhere. If I'm in the bodybuilding space, I'm not anything you'd look twice at. But as far as a random human walking around, it's noticeable. My point is, though, is little Alan at 10 years old would notice. Little Alan at 10 years old would go. And these kids, they do that. They're like, whoa. And I don't know if that's energetic or what, but these kids will look at Emilia and I, and they'll be so drawn to us, they'll actually start walking up to us. And the parents come over and they're like, no, get out of the way, get out of the way. They're playing basketball, like, get out of the way. And the parents have an interesting aversion. The kids are just drawn. They're all drawn. It's very fascinating. And I think it's an energetic thing. I think they can feel the love. I think they can feel the inspiration. I think they want to be a part of it. I can't pretend to understand any of this, but I do know the kids are drawn. Barnes and Noble, same deal. These kids will like look at us, and it's just this interesting experience. Maybe they can sense the love between Emilia and I. But when you're 10 years old, you don't have an ego. You kind of call a spade a spade. You're not playing status games yet. There isn't that crap of, well, I can't give you that because that makes me less than. So I think that's why this is such a good question, is what would 10-year-old version of you think about you? So when I was 10, I think I went and saw Star Wars Episode 2, and Natalie Portman was my first love. I playfully say that. In Star Wars Episode 2, she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I wasn't inflating it. I wasn't deflating it. I just had reverence. And now as an adult, when I watch those films, I go, oh, just a regular girl. But as a kid, you just see so much inspiration. And so I think it's important for all of us to check in on that, because I did this with my therapist, Carol, and she said, let's go back into your childhood self and let's look at you now. What do you think of you? What do you want to say to you? And it was super, super powerful. So without doing that on a podcast, how can you look at yourself accurately? Like you with fitness, your older self wouldn't be as impressed, but your kid self probably would be. Your childhood self would, for sure.
Well, it depends on whether childhood self would have saw a 5-year-ago version first.
True. That's fair. Let's assume it didn't. Let's assume we all go back to 10, and your 10-year-old version meets this version of Kevin.
I would say so.
My 10-year-old version meets this version of Alan, and they never saw any other versions. I think for everyone out there listening or watching, I think that's a powerful understanding. Talk about a mirror to look in. A different frame. Yeah.
The weird thing about when you're 10, and again, it was a long time ago for me. I don't necessarily remember it super, super clearly. I don't think you recognize ego at all. I don't think you recognize ego in other people almost at all.
I know. Which is so unfortunate.
That's why it's almost... I think that's why our heroes, at least for me, this was my experience, the people I looked up to were the people who looked the way I wanted to look, acted the way I wanted to act, or had the results that I thought I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really about character for me, because I didn't really know what character was when I was that young.
Yeah.
You don't understand what it's like to... You don't have the hindsight to understand what it's like to actually be disrespectful and then regret it. You don't get it yet. But I remember looking forward to people who are in really good shape. The people I looked up to when I was young were Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior was a wrestler in like 80s and 90s. He was jacked. He was
which one was it? Who was it?
The Ultimate Warrior.
I don't know if I've ever seen him.
He was so jacked. And I remember I had like a little Ultimate Warrior doll, and I was like, if I could look like that one day, holy crap, that would be awesome. And trust me, I've never looked like that. I think I've looked my version
That
of that.
may require some performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah, they were dealing those out like Skittles back then. But again, this dude was jacked. So I think it's different. Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there. The things I appreciate about myself today are probably not the things I thought I would have appreciated about myself 5 years ago. I was on a great podcast last night. I've been on so many amazing podcasts. Shout out, especially this week.
Same.
Shout out to Laura.
Yeah.
And it was just, when you go on those shows and you just know the person has done the work and they have that energy of like, this is going to be a deep episode, but you're good.
Mm-hmm.
I had that last night, and
yeah, there's no ego. There's
none.
No dominance. There's no status stuff.
No,
there's
just
no
add value. Just
yeah,
add value.
So good.
Shout
out to Kevin Lowe as well. Kevin Lowe, I went on his show yesterday. Grit, grace, and inspiration. It was so good. One of my favorites.
Kev's a good dude.
Shout out to Kevin Lowe.
Yeah, Kev's a really good dude. We were talking about success. And again, what's your unique version of success? And I said, the more and more I evolve and the more and more I lean into it, I just want to be a good man. I just want to be a good man. Now, yes, I want to be able to pay the bills, and yes, I do want nice things. Those are my truths. I do. Might seem materialistic, but I like nice things. I just do. But not at the expense of being a good man.
Yeah, you need both.
You need both.
And
we were doing kind of the wrap-up at the end, and Stephanie, her name was Stephanie, as we got to the end, she said, "I thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed your story. I feel like I learned a ton, and Kev, you're a really good man." And I started crying. I was like, "Oh my goodness, how dare we do this at 7:00 on a Tuesday?" I don't think I thought about that as much when I was younger. I think I've always thought about it to a degree, but I also didn't have that many opportunities not to be a good person. Like there's a lot of things we could do that are outside of alignment, but would make us more successful. 100%. There's a million of them, but now it matters more than it ever has. So I think 5 years ago, Kev would look at this version of Kev and say, not only have you improved and you've become more confident and you've worked on your self-belief and your self-worth and your boundaries, and there's a business and there's an amazing team and you're married and all that, but you didn't lose yourself in that process. And it would have been really, really easy to get lost in that process. So I think that's something 5-year-old Kev would recognize. And he also say, hey man, get your ass in the gym a little bit more. Less Taco Bell, more curls in the gym, please, sir.
Curls. How much do you bench?
Yes. How much do you bench?
How much do you bench, man? Whenever I get asked that question, I got asked that question after that speech. How much do you bench?
Yes.
It's fun. How tall are you? This is so funny. But again,
nobody asks me that. It's weird. None of the high school kids ask me that.
Most of them come over, shake your hand real hard, and men are funny. They shake your hand real hard. Shake my hand harder.
It is
okay.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I told Alan, I said, I want you to know, like, those kids are making fun of you.
Yeah.
I know you don't know this, but those kids are 100% making fun of you. There's something about that. It's a dominance thing.
Let's actually talk about that. Why? I mean, I would never make fun of me. If anything, I'd have reverence.
I think this is why. I think this is why I brought up the ego thing. Because when you're 10, you can look up to someone and just look up to someone. Because it's cool. It's cool to look up to someone. When you're 15, 16, 17, 18, it's not really cool to look up to someone anymore. It's not the same.
Why?
Because I think it requires humility. I think it requires a lot of humility to look up to someone and give them that. I really think it does. And here's the other thing too. I think people put themselves in the place of, if I was where that person is, what would I think of myself? And I'm willing to bet, as awesome as it is for us to speak in front of 1,100 kids, the high school, the older kids, they're not thinking about that. That's not what they want to do with their lives.
Right.
So if anything, it's like, this is what you guys do? You come in and talk to high school kids? Like, no, we do way more than that, but this is just you're just seeing us in a second of time in front of you.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it like that.
I think that's what it is.
If anything, we're giving back with that. Like that was...
Think of this. And again, this isn't, don't connect it directly to us. I'm not saying, you'll see the thing. If you go to a baseball game and you go to a Major League Baseball game and you go to an A baseball game. So there's single A, double A, triple A, major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go through all those unless you're world class. If you go to the major leagues as a 15-year-old kid, you're looking up to all those people. You know all of their names. If you go to like a single A game, you don't know who any of those people are, and you probably don't look up to them, even though they're way better than you. They're still
That's a great point.
World class.
I don't think for me in my brain that was ever that way. I would still look up to them because they're at a higher level than. You think that's what it is? It's the staircase? I can see the staircase.
It's not a level that you aspire to get to. It's not. Yeah, nobody is going to college to play baseball and they say, I really hope I stay at single A baseball. Everyone gets the majors. That's the
Brandon
aspiration.
was a D2 football player in college, and for his size and stature, that's statistically insane. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe statistically, I know how rare that is.
Maybe.
To play D2 football as someone who's 5'5", I mean, that's what, 1 in a million?
You'd
1 in 10. Maybe that's what my brain does. So that's interesting. I also think, to bring this back to the original point, I also want to share this too. I had this moment when you were talking about all the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, all that stuff. And you know what's interesting is I don't think you look up to them that much anymore.
I look up to Sylvester Stallone still a little bit. Again, they all pumped massive amounts of steroids into their bodies. Like, it is what it is. That's what everybody was doing at that time. I'm not using that as an excuse. I really appreciate the fact that he came from nothing and believed in himself so much. He wrote and directed. He wrote the script for Rocky. And when he was trying to sell the script, they said, you're not acting in it. You're not an actor. You're not acting in it. And they kept offering him money. And he would not. He said, I'm acting in it. I wrote this. I'm going to act in it. And he got to the point where he had to sell his freaking dog because he couldn't afford to feed his dog anymore. But he kept believing. And then he became... I mean, the Rocky movie was a huge hit, and he won a bunch of awards, and he made a boatload of money, and then he went and bought his dog back. That's awesome. I love that. I love that story. I think that's super, super powerful. So I have appreciation. I have reverence. What is it? Reverence for that.
Yeah.
Everybody
that
else
is unbelievable.
I don't know. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger's out here getting the housekeeper pregnant while he's married. Like, that. I'm sorry, Arnie. That ain't it. that just ain't it for me. So, some people have fallen off the pedestal for sure.
For sure. And as you get older, I think they're supposed to. But I wanted to share this when you were talking about all of them. Kevin and I playfully joked behind the scenes, and we've said this, I think, to the team, or maybe it was group coaching, I forget. But if I were to have one superpower, I always talk about in the show Friends, Ross made a comic when he was a kid, when he was probably around 10, and he made a comic called Science Boy. And Phoebe asks Ross in the show, well, what's Science Boy's superpower? It's a comic book, is a superhero. It's like a superhuman thirst for knowledge. And Kev goes, my superpower, if I could choose one, is, what is it?
Super strength. Oh, the incredible. Yeah,
the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, super strength or something like that. Everyone always asks, like, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, you used to say,
like,
I wish I could pause
strength.
time. That's one you said before. I still want to be super strong. I think pausing time would be super cool, but I think I think lifting cars off of people would be cooler.
Fair. That's a fair
So that's
assessment.
mine.
The superhuman thirst for knowledge you can have right now.
That's true.
That's a superpower you can choose right now. I feel like I'm trying to do that. Okay, so back to the 10-year-old self. What would 10-year-old self think of you? Before the ego develops, before the naive wears off, before you get these rose-colored / dark-colored glasses. I think we are all born with this clear cup of water, and we don't know anything or anyone, and we don't get it, and we don't understand anything or anyone, and we don't know how the world works, and no one's cheated on you yet. You're just a pristine little hard drive, for lack of better phrasing. And by 10 years old, for many of us, that's actually not true, because there's probably tons of mud slung in your glass by then, depending on your adverse childhood experiences. It's called an ACE score. But anyways, so 10 years old, these little kids, the way that they see their parents, I can witness it. I can see it. It's so interesting. I talked about the little girl. The guy brought his daughter into the liquor store while drunk driving. That was like really hard for me, because I could see how much he's her hero. And I can see what that's going to do to her. If that's your hero, you're going to end up with a guy like that who drives drunk and brings his daughter into the liquor store. So anyways, without going down the dark road, what would your younger self think of you? What would it really believe? What would you really contemplate? Would you think you're good looking? Would you think you're in great shape? Would you think you're really smart? Oh, you're so smart. You're so hardworking. You're so well-rounded. You're so athletic. You're so strong. I remember I used to think my stepdad was so strong. He wasn't that strong. He was just strong compared to me, right? It's such a different perspective now. And that's, again, I've been talking a lot about this lately. You've got to go back to the past. You've got to face the past. You've got to relearn from your past. Because these people that you thought were so much actually weren't. And maybe you are. Maybe you are. Maybe you're not, but maybe you are. And so when my therapist, Carol, asked me that question, it was really cool to really go back and think, I in many ways have become my own hero. I've become the male role model that I wish that I had. And I hope that for everyone.
Same.
I hope that for everyone. Because what else? We talk about self-actualization. We talk about becoming all you can be, doing all you can with all you have, maximizing your potential, achieving your goals and dreams. What is the point of life if it's not to become your own hero? What is the point of life if it's not to do all you can with all you have? What else? What other point could there possibly be? That if you can, I actually just bought a poem. It's called "The Man in the Glass."
I have like a minute, just FYI.
Oh, thank you.
No.
So I have a poem that I just bought. I'm framing it. And I'm actually going to hang it back here in my office, and it's called "The Man in the Glass." And it's a poem that represents no matter what the world thinks of you, no matter what your fans think of you, or your listeners think of you, or your friends or family think of you, at the end of the day, you're going to look at yourself. And it's "Man in the Glass" because it was written by a man, but it's for women too. You're going to look in the mirror and you're going to, are you proud of it? Prior to 26, I couldn't have honestly said yes. I couldn't. There's no way. I wasn't proud. I wasn't. And I can say that now. And hopefully I can say that even more next year, and even more the year after that, and even more the year after that. And I'll do my damnedest to make sure that's the case. But I remember living a life below my potential. I remember not being my own hero. I remember letting myself down every day. I will not live like that ever again. And I hope that everyone, at least to some degree, I really do feel like that's where fulfillment is. If you can become your own hero, if you can become the hero of your own story, if you can be a bright light for others in the way that you would have needed, I do believe that that's the best it'll ever get.
Last thing before we go, another person that I don't look up to nearly as much as I used to, probably not at all, but it's the old Joe Rogan quote of be the hero of your own story. I've always liked that quote. I've always liked that premise. I've always thought that was super powerful. Be the hero of your own story. Because at the end of the day, you kind of have to be. Somebody else can help, somebody else can assist, somebody else can guide, but you're gonna have to be the hero who gets yourself out of the struggle, suffering, hole, whatever it is. All right, we got to go. Tomorrow, for episode number 1705, it's Freestyle Friday. We love Freestyle Friday. So we're going to talk about something that will be freestyle on a Friday. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans, we have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Be the hero of your own story. Next Level Nation.